Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
And good afternoon, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at criticalblast.com, and I am not ashamed to admit to you today that I am going to be hopelessly out of my depth in this particular arena of pop culture, but fortunately we've got a very knowledgeable guide to help us out on this one. If you remember back in the day, and honestly reading the story, this feels like forever ago, when Britney Spears had her very public mental breakdown issues, her estate was put into what was called a conservatorship. This was basically saying, hey, obviously you're not capable of taking care of yourself. We're going to do it for you. And no, you don't have a choice in the matter, which on one hand is like, yeah, some people need that help. On the other, it can be kind of scary, especially if you get better, or, you know, whatever stresses were causing this are taken away, and then you want to get your life back. And it's ever the case that when you give control to something, getting it back is always the hardest part. With us today talking about this, we have Mr. Aron Solomon, who is an expert in these matters. And perhaps the first thing you could do for us is explain to us exactly what your area of expertise is and how it relates to conservatorships.
First of all, thanks very much for having me, RJ. So I'm a lawyer by training, a legal analyst, and I'm often looking at where the law intersects with other things in society, including celebrity. I'm pretty familiar with the California Code as it relates to conservatorships, and I'll do my best today to share some observations on that for everybody.
So a conservatorship, as I understand us, I hope I explained it correctly. You know, somebody's not capable of taking care of themselves, someone else decides to step in and do it, and they'd have to be somebody, family, or with the person's best interests, at least in the eyes of the court, wouldn't they?
Yes, and generally conservatorships kind of get on the public radar only when it's celebrities, but the conservatorship itself is not something that's terribly uncommon. We all have heard about conservatorships when somebody gets old. Maybe they have a condition such as dementia, and it's impossible for them to take care of themselves and to take care of their estate. So the court appoints somebody, and that can be a family member, but it doesn't have to be. And that conservator's job is to give their best efforts to make sure that things go well. And sometimes that works out, and other times not so much.
Yeah, there was just an intriguing film was put out on, I forget what streaming service I watched it on now, but it's called I Care a Lot. And it was the premise that this healthcare worker was finding people who were just on the cusp of showing signs of dementia, and then having the court sign the papers for her, and she'd just come in and take over. And these people didn't even know who they were. And they would be put into homes, and she would sell their stuff. And
wow, I mean, that can be a power of attorney, not just a conservatorship, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of times when people, especially today, you know, with everything being on the internet and social media being as prevalent as it is, there are all kinds of scams that get people to believe things that aren't true. It's particularly difficult to see when that person is vulnerable. So anybody who's ever put under a conservatorship, the court has judged that they have some kind of vulnerability that needs to be addressed.
And what obligations does a person have if they are put in the position of a conservator?
So the California Probate Code spells out very clearly what a conservator can and can't do, and what their relation is and obligations are to the person called the conservatee. And in that case, that's Britney Spears. So in her case, 13 years ago, her father, Jamie Spears, was named as conservator. There's two sides to every story. So the side of the story that we hear about a lot in public is that he's taken money, he's done terrible things, and he needs to be removed as conservator. And that may very well be true. The other side of the coin that you hear from him and his supporters is that when he took over as conservator, Britney was very close to insolvent. And now the estate is worth at least $60 million by most accounts. So, you know, the truth probably falls somewhere in between. And it's going to be up to the court when Britney and her legal team make a motion to end the conservatorship to figure this all out.
Yeah, and I guess an argument could be made that the estate is worth what it is now because she had somebody watching her out for her. rather than despite it.
Sure. And the thing is, look, I mean, one of the
Uh-oh. We've
ends or not.
We lost you there for a second.
Oh, sorry about that. I was going to say one of the reasons that it's so much in the public spotlight is because whether the conservatorship ends or not, this is a celebrity who has huge lifetime earning potential for the rest of her life. Imagine a post, Free Britney tour if her conservatorship ends. This could be at least $1 billion tour. Yeah. So the stakes are really high for everybody currently involved in her life and financial situation.
Now, what are the exact details that Jamie Spears is overseeing here? Because I'm seeing it's not just money. I'm seeing like, she can't have kids because she's, there's been medical decisions made for her. Is there any truth to that?
We don't know yet, because that's going to come up in court when she looks to end the conservatorship, and that hasn't happened yet. We've heard lots of allegations, from the fact that she's been forced to use a birth control device to being forbidden from marrying. She has 2 conservators right now. So she has Jamie, who is the conservator, and while there's been lots of rumors over the past few weeks that he was going to step down, absolutely nothing is official yet as of today, which is Friday. The other conservator she has is somebody called the conservator of the person, and that woman's named Jody Montgomery. And she's responsible for doing things like making sure that Britney takes the medication that she's supposed to take, etc. So right now she does have 2 conservators, but only one, Jamie, is the conservator of her estate.
Okay, and at some point, Britney is able to file. I mean, is she capable of filing? What's the process of filing for release from your conservatorship?
So she's got a great lawyer right now. She had a court-appointed lawyer for a long time, Mr. Ingram, and he agreed to step down at her request. So she has a lawyer from a big law firm who's represented celebrities before. So he's more than capable of making a motion to end the conservatorship and getting that process moving. But the first thing that's going to happen, which is on September 24th, is there's going to be a hearing to end the Jamie Spears' run as Britney's conservator. If that's successful, either voluntarily or involuntarily through him, then she's going to need another conservator. The court has to appoint somebody else in the interim, and then her lawyer would make a motion to end the conservatorship. And at that point, it's all going to be about both sides looking to produce evidence to show that Britney either still needs to be under a conservatorship or is well enough not to be. And that's going to be quite a battle.
I can imagine. One of the things that I know that's standing, I guess, for Jamie's favor, that she's not ready, is that she apparently posted a bunch of pictures on Instagram recently. I don't know the nature of the photographs. I don't know why a spate of selfies would say, hey, I'm not ready to come out, versus, the whole shaved head wandering around homeless looking in a daze pictures, which was obviously a completely different issue.
We also learned, yes, so she did post some Instagram pictures that, again, she's an adult woman. She can post anything she wants on social media. Were I her attorney, I'd probably say something like, probably not the best time to be posting somewhat revealing pictures. We also learned yesterday, on Thursday, that allegedly on Monday, she struck her housekeeper. Now, it seems to me that the timing of this happening is so bad that it almost raises some yellow flags for anybody reading that, wondering if the story has been planted or what the situation is. That said, if she really did assault her housekeeper, it's something that's going to come into evidence when we look to end the conservatorship, probably in the fall.
Yeah, it's funny how all the evidence for something like this is all the stuff that happened in the last 2 weeks, not like, hey, 3 years ago this happened, 18 months ago this, that to show a pattern. So you're right, it does raise suspicions on the part of the public, saying, why now? Why now when it's so close to possibly being over?
Great point.
So to contrast this, I mean, we hear a lot about the Britney Spears story, but the one that just popped up on my radar earlier this week was the Nichols story, because, while Britney Spears is definitely pop culture and that's supposed to be our milieu, I'm more in the sci-fi geek of things. So yeah, Star Trek, that rings my bells. I'm listening now. You've got my attention. Can you give us a brief rundown on the Nichols thing? I know that was a health issue.
It was a health issue. So unlike Britney Spears, she's in her 80s. and she has had some health issues, and those include, issues around her ability to take care of herself. Again, this is another one where you read lots of things, right? What parties were in the right and what were in the wrong. I've read things where, her son, who is her conservator, has taken money and moved her out of the Woodland Hills home that she's enjoyed since the 1980s that she bought for like $12,000 back then.
Wow.
And I've also heard other stories where he's the good guy and the former manager who's trying to, post and portray himself in the light as the good guy really isn't. So again, this is, depending on what story you read, you get different perspectives, but there is a conservatorship battle going on there as well.
Now, this is also a situation where, Nichelle is petitioning, or her lawyer is petitioning, saying the medical condition that caused this no longer exists. Again, she's in her 80s, so I would think that the argument's going to be harder to make in her case. Britney Spears, a mental breakdown, the stresses of the celebrity, the stuff she was having to try to keep up with. She's young; she can get through that if with the right therapies. One would think. Maybe she can't. Whereas, Nichelle's like, you're not going to get younger and physically healthier than any normal 80-year-old would be. It is. I don't know the nature of the specific health incident that put her into a conservatorship in the first place.
With a lot of these health issues, as people get older, and around a conservatorship, there are multiple parties involved. So you may have even a close friend who has known them for years saying, I don't think that this person needs to be under a conservatorship at this point, because clearly not everybody who ages gets a conservator.
Sure.
So you might have a party trying to intercede and intervene, say, these other people around, including the current conservator, are really trying to take advantage of the conservatee. And a person like that can bring evidence to the court as well. So it's important for people to understand that just because you age, because all of us are aging, you aren't necessarily going to need a conservator.
And it does seem like you said, it only hits the news when it's Hollywood and when it's celebrity. I know there were several stories, and I don't think he was in a conservatorship, but you hear the stories about the aides to Stan Lee, who were taking advantage of him in his 90s.
Yes.
Was he under conservatorship?
No, there was never a conservatorship there. There have been celebrity conservatorships like Joni Mitchell and Brian Wilson, Randy Meisner, the guy who hit those amazing high notes for the Eagles. In fact, Randy Meisner was an interesting Hollywood conservatorship because he actually came forward and said, I'm really not feeling like myself after my wife passed, and I feel like I actually need the intervention of a conservator so I don't, blow all my money and do things that don't work. Each of these celebrity conservatorships, though, seems to have the common thread of some people involved who are kind of unsavory characters.
Yeah, it's and I don't know how a judge makes a determination if somebody should be removed from a conservatorship, especially if there's usually two of them. So I would think if there's tension between the two, saying, hey, this one's the bad guy, no, that one's the bad guy. If I were the judge, I'd say, okay, I'm taking you both off and we're putting somebody state appointed on. Whereas if they both get along really well, now I'm thinking, well, maybe they're in cahoots together and they're just going to split the loot.
Of course. And, that can happen. But look, back to Britney Spears for a second. What the court's going to look at in deciding whether or not to have the conservatorship end is very, very simple. Can she and her legal team bring forth evidence to show that she's of sound mind and she's able to take care of her finances? Britney has said very clearly that she will not undergo any other psychological examinations. Supposedly, she said that she has been abused by a psychiatrist in the past. So she's not going to do any more of these tests. It's going to be a real uphill battle to see if she can prove to the court what she needs to prove.
Yeah, if you are not going to take the test to create the proof,
right,
it is going to be very difficult. I don't know what other proof someone else could offer in her stead. It'd be all character witness stuff at that point, I would imagine.
Exactly, and it's going to have to show. Well, one thing that if I were Britney's team, that I would do is say, if this person is unwilling and unable to take care of herself, how does she go out and do X number of shows over the course of a year in Las Vegas. It seems to me like you've got to be of sound mind and, able-bodied to go out and perform in the way she does. And that's absolutely evidence that she can bring forward. But absent current psychological evaluations from professionals that the court trusts to show, yeah, we think that she can take care of her own affairs, it's going to be a real challenge for her. No matter how much her fans advocate for her, and no matter how much she puts herself in the public spotlight.
So, what's the percentage of older celebrities or celebrities in general that end up in a conservatorship? Because it seems like you always hear about somebody in a similar situation, but it's sporadic. It's like, hey, this was the year that this person's caretaker took them for a ride or something.
The percentage would be minutely small, well under 1%. Because as you said, there's so many that we don't hear about. It's honestly not the norm for someone to end up in a conservatorship. It's a really exceptional thing. Okay,
so it's a very narrow niche line of Indeed. Law to be an expert in.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, but again, it falls under the probate courts in California. So the Judge Penny, who's in charge of Britney's case, a lot of people have said, well, has this judge done anything wrong over the past 13 years? Everything that I've seen the judge do, over that period, as you look back upon the actions, the motions she's granted, what she's denied, is indicative of a judge doing the best to do her job. And also someone where this is not the entirety of her caseload. She's got other cases she's looking at. So I personally think that she's done the best that she can do. Maybe history is going to show that there were some missteps along the way, but I don't think that there's anything there that I've seen that would rise to the level that some people have talked about judicial misconduct.
And the hearing, the initial hearing at least for Britney, is going to be in September. You said
on the 24th. Yeah, 24th.
Okay, so we'll be watching that. Is there a hearing set yet for the Nichols case?
Not that I've heard of, no. And that just hit the news cycle this week. And again, because of Britney, as you said, celebrity conservatorships are things that people like to talk about and analyze. But I think it's very important for the viewers here to understand that they're very different things. Everyone is complicated, and it really is up to the court to try to extract that evidence that shows what the truth is.
Yeah, and you said that's a very minimal amount of cases that become conservatorships because it's not the norm. I had this feeling we're going to hear about a few more of them, because usually what happens with celebrity news is when one person's got some situation, let's find 5 more people that have the same situation. And now we've got one with Nichols. Do you know of any that are coming up on the horizon here?
I don't have any on my horizon, but what you say is a great thesis, of course, because it's newsworthy. And it's not just newsworthy in good ways, but, people love internet clickbait. And the minute you put together the word celebrity and conservatorship these days, people are going to click. I've seen those clicks come through legal analysis pieces that I've written over the past couple of months about celebrity conservatorship. They just get a lot of traffic. So people are absolutely, you're right, looking for more celebrities that they can write stories about and talk about.
And where are your stories found at, Aron, so people can check out, the stuff you've done?
Todaysesquire.com, and also really all over the internet if you just look for Aron Solomon.
All right. Like I said, I had very little to ask about this because I knew very little about it. I don't know what areas I should explore further, if there's anything else that needs to be out there.
I think you did great. I think the most important thing that people need to remember is, while public opinion is fine, and while there's so many people out there, so many of Britney's fans who are supporting her, none of this matters in a positive or a negative way as far as the court goes. They're going to do what they need to do.
All right. Well, Aron, thank you so much for coming on the show and explaining all of this to us, because it's we're all internet lawyers when it comes to talking about celebrities. Like, this is what I believe. That's what trust me. I'm watching people get into trademark disputes right now on the internet, and we're all thinking about who's going to win and who's going to lose and why. So it's I'm going to have to get a trade. Do you do trademark work? I might have you back.
I don't, but I know that there's lots of patent trolls out there as well. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Take
folks
care.
in the chat, appreciate being here. We don't have a show without you, and we just hope that you